Are you about to receive your own state-level Department of Government Efficiency? Well, we're going to answer that question. But before we get there, we're also going to give you a countdown of some of the worst state-level examples of government bloat, fraud, waste, abuse, mismanagement, and to be honest, some of the most impressive grift posing as public good we've ever seen. Trust us when we tell you that some of the projects are so ridiculous, they would make a U.S. aid contractor blush. So without further ado, let's get to the top 5 examples. Coming in at number 5, have you ever thought that the solution to banking was to just have the government run the banks? Well, the same state government that was faulted for $2.9 billion in accounting errors by state auditors, $1.1 billion in accidental overspending by its Department of Transportation, and a government pension system $28 billion in debt, now wants to create an official Oregon government state bank. Because if the banks won't give you a loan because you're doing such a bad job, just make your own, right? Let's move on to number 4. You remember Obamacare. Well, that little gem of a program started out in good old Massachusetts. And maybe if we had had just a little bit more time to see how it played out there, we could have learned that it is currently getting slammed for, quote, as much as $1.75 billion in annual cost waste due to unnecessary insurance administrative burdens that result in wasted resources expended while attempting to reconcile denied claims, excessive time spent contesting claim denials, and claims processing delays. That's right. The state that showed the rest of the country how to do it found that through March 2024, the statewide median operating margin of its hospitals was negative 0.1%. For those of you who can do math, that's called an operating loss. So I think Massachusetts could probably use a DOGE. You're going to love this one. Coming in at number 3, we have a state that had an incredibly modest proposal to offer quality healthcare to citizens of other countries. That's right. Perpetual woke scold and sometimes governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, offered what he called a modest proposal to offer healthcare to undocumented members of our community. How modest? Well, a mere $220 million in tax dollars from U.S. citizens who have to actually pay for their own healthcare. Now, that would have been bad enough, but the fact that the estimate rose to $1.1 billion just 3 months after the plan went into place means it had to make this list. Number 2. You remember the DOGE identified boondoggle that was the IRS IT modernization program that is 30 years behind schedule? Well, New York State straight up said, hold my white claw, and decided to take even longer. Initiated 32 years ago and ballooning to $351 million. The state of New York still does not have an updated and fully functioning computer system to track, wait for it, children in their foster care. And now, not to be outdone by any of the other chump states that came before it, you're number 1. We get to perhaps one of the single most greatest examples of state government waste, and you just know it had to be good old Texas. I'm just kidding. It's California. I want you to imagine a glorious future where instead of fighting through traffic jams and smog, you gingerly step onto the latest and high-speed rail. You sit back and in no time, you've traveled 800 miles in affordable luxury, all while doing your small part to save the planet. And now it's 16 years later, $11 billion has been spent, and you don't even have a mile of usable high-speed track. Oh, and those projections have gone from $33 billion to $135 billion. Yeah. And the new projections, the $135 billion one, that's actually for a much more scaled down version of what you originally voted for. But if you don't give the California state government more of your money, you're clearly just a racist. Now, this is just a small sampling of state level government waste, and it probably explains why the calls for state DOGE projects are increasing. Advocates like Cliff Maloney suggested that state DOGEs should even be able to work faster than the federal version, given that they are more local and closer to the issues impacting their states, which seems to make sense. So, would you like to guess which of the states I just mentioned will be pushing for some sort of creation or expansion of a DOGE-like project in order to prevent this sort of government waste, fraud, abuse from taking place? None of them. Yeah, that's right. According to the Left-Wing Economic Policy Institute, Oregon, Massachusetts, Illinois, New York, and California will not be among the 26 states currently considering legislation or executive action to create a state-level DOGE. Texas, on the other hand, has already signed a bill into law. That's right. Let's go over to Ground News, where we found this headline. Texas governor signs law creating state DOGE. Now, as you can see, one article on the left categorizes this as a massive new government agency inspired by Musk. Whereas on the right, they are highlighting that the bill actually received bipartisan support, passing the Texas House with a 97-51 vote and the Senate 26-5. I can dive into this story because Ground News provides me multiple articles that have already been published on this topic with links directly to the article. Now remember, Ground News is a website and an app that gathers related articles in one place so you can compare headlines, helping you to understand not just what's happening, but who's telling the story and why. So if, like us, you are somewhat frustrated with the way that typical search engines curate the news where you only get one perspective, go over to ground.news/Doge and check out all of the different features they provide. In fact, if you go over there right now to ground.news/Doge, you can get 40% off their Vantage plan, bringing the price down to just $5 a month for unlimited access. This will give you access to all the features you need to keep track of everything that is going on, both with DOGE and beyond. So let's get back to this question of which states either have a DOGE or are considering one. Well, North Dakota, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Kentucky, and West Virginia all have legislation that has or is being considered. In some states like Oklahoma and Louisiana, the governors are leading the way with executive orders creating DOGE-like entities. Other executive order states include places like Montana, New Hampshire, Florida, and Iowa. Now, this is important because legislators can attempt to legislate DOGE, but without a supportive governor, it probably ain't going to happen. On the other hand, a DOGE-friendly governor without a DOGE-friendly legislature probably isn't going to create any sort of DOGE that will last. And that brings me to my final point. As big a fan as I am of achieving greater government efficiency, it is absolutely critical that we remember two things. First, a Department of Government efficiency will be as good or as bad as the government running it. Don't be surprised when a state-level DOGE turns into a left-wing version of itself. It's not the department part that matters as much as the government efficiency part, and that leads me to my second point. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. As much as I have liked the stated mission of DOGE, I'm actually not a huge fan of the name. Probably because I don't tend to like government departments and because efficiency only means something good if the government is limited in nature and scope. And that is ultimately what I am really after. I don't want a slightly more efficient government behemoth. I want a drastically smaller government that never presumes to spend my money on trans operas in Colombia because it doesn't have the time, manpower, or money to even dream up something so incredibly stupid. This is what the real goal of DOGE has to be, whether it's at the federal or state level. It needs to be about helping remind Americans that what makes this country special is not a massive bureaucracy that promises to give you everything at the expense of someone else, but the freedom of opportunity for each of us to build a life for ourselves, to work together when it makes sense, to leave each other alone when it doesn't, and to please, for the love of all that is holy, remember that what we're after is a government that understands that its primary responsibility is to protect our rights, not control our lives.